Hello and welcome back to Talking Scheidt. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever you are. Thanks for tuning in this afternoon. Plenty to discuss. Today we've got Josip Juranovic, his first big sort of interview after leaving Celtic. That was posted last night. Michael Beale's recent comments on Rangers' financial muscle, and then of course the very quick return of Jim Goodwin. He was announced as Dundee United's new boss. We'll go through the weekend's games as well and get some quantified predictions from the lads. The two marks today, Hendo and Dukes, are here with me to discuss everything that is on offer. How are you, chaps?
Not bad, yourself?
Not bad. Hendo, you all right?
Very good, thanks.
Tremendous. Right, we'll kick off at Juranovic then. A big interview obviously dropped last night, and he's pretty much come out and said that the Celtic hierarchy really should have fought harder to keep hold of him. In January, the right back says he was sad about this and knew when Ange Postecoglou signed Alistair Johnston before the January window that sort of writing was on the wall for him in terms of his Celtic future. Hendo, we covered the Juranovic sort of transfer saga until the cows came home across January. He was going to Barca, he was going to Chelsea, he was going to Man United, and then of course eventually signed for Union Berlin for around £10 million. Just when his comments sort of dropped last night, Hendo, what were your sort of initial reaction to what he said?
To be honest, I think it was what a lot of fans had probably expected. I don't think it was clear to anyone that he desperately wanted to leave. At least that's kind of not the way I read it at the time. And it just kind of further proved that. The Alistair Johnston thing was still bizarre to think that a guy who was starring at the World Cup and Josip Juranovic finishing, third?
Yeah.
Doesn't even have a club to go back to play starting 11 football. And it was a kind of strange situation the way it played out.
Right.
Excuse me. It was just an all round strange scenario from the outside looking in. Certainly the way Celtic did their business. Obviously they wanted to sell as opposed to Josip Juranovic wanting to leave, but
yeah.
I don't think it's a good look, this interview coming out for Celtic on other clubs' perspective. Right. Because the guy was obviously popular with the fans in terms of how he played on the pitch. Maybe some supporters maybe will actually respect him a wee bit more now because he's come out and kind of given his sort of his truth, if that makes sense. Yeah. Some fans, I think I remember seeing on social media, I would read every reply to our article saying, if he wants out, he wants money, he wants this, they get him out. But I mean, clearly, according to the player anyway, that he didn't want to leave. So maybe that will change some opinions. But I don't think it's a good look for Celtic. Anyway.
No. Yeah, Dukes. I think we're just getting the sense that he was sort of quite willing to stay on at Celtic if offers weren't tabled for him, in January. Do you feel, maybe as well that deep down, after his World Cup sort of showing with Croatia, that he was sort of going to be leaving Glasgow, he probably be feeling in the back of his mind that, I'm probably going to be going away in January. Because obviously he's saying as well that once Johnson was sort of confirmed before the window even opened, that was kind of really the tipping point sort of for Juranovic.
Yeah, I find it a bit strange. I think what Hendo says is right, that it doesn't look great on Celtic, but at the same time, we're going to talk about Rangers later and the finances and stuff, but Celtic probably had to sell Juranovic at this point to get the most value they could from him. I don't think his value was going to get any higher playing in Scotland than what it was. I think, what age is he, 27, 28 now? So kind of needed to sell now to get that sort of fee that they wanted for him, and I think it was probably the right decision. But I do think it was a bit weird the way that, he's come out and said that he didn't really want to leave effectively, but he's been linked with clubs all across Europe from last summer, maybe even before that. So you kind of wonder then, is he really being completely truthful on that, given that, you know, that just doesn't come about. Just somebody obviously putting his name out there to all these different clubs. But yeah, it's a strange one all around. I just find it a very weird bit of a fallout. Like, I don't think it's a great line, and I get what he's saying, but I don't really think he particularly needed to come out and say that either. I think fans were quite happy, you know, if he stayed or if he went. They've got the new back in. They've earned a lot of money for him, and I think it was probably a good move for everybody. So I just find it a bit strange that he's come out and kind of almost made it a bit more awkward than he needs to at this stage.
Yeah, it's true.
I think that's, sorry, Gary, that's where it comes into it when I'm talking to Doug Zeller on about social media reaction. And I mean, the guy played a season and a bit. He wasn't a stalwart, you know, there for 10 plus years.
No.
And he developed a reputation for being, you know, consistent, for being, you know, a decent pair of hands, whatever. But he also will feel slighted in a way, I would imagine, and that's probably why he's kind of gone out of his way to do this, you know, to give his opinion. Because again, if I can see social media reaction to Juranovic wants away, he wants money, he won't sign a new deal, you know, it's all about the money. You can imagine a guy who, you know, a professional, a guy who has professional pride, and a guy who still holds a love for a club.
Yeah.
You know, he'll want to come out and sort of say, you know, hold on a minute here, this wasn't me driving this. Because it wouldn't have been, as you mentioned, sort of a wee minute ago, because it would have been probably someone closer to him, maybe a rep or an agent or whatever, maybe putting his name out there and trying to drum up a bit of interest. But you've got to have you would have a bit of pride in these situations where if someone's saying one thing and you know that it's not that kind of that's not why you've done a certain thing, is the only thing I can think. But yeah, it's just a strange scenario.
Yeah. I was going to say, Hendel, that, you know, he also said that he feels Union Berlin was a sort of perfect move for him at this time, you know, despite all the United, the Chelsea, the Barca rumours, and that he'd rather take one sort of small step just now instead of too many at the one time. That's what he sort of came out and said last night. But, you know, given what he done during the sort of World Cup, he absolutely shone for Croatia, right up to sort of latter stages. You know, you'd have to say that, you know, he would be sort of ready if a deal, you know, to a Premier League move did transpire. I don't know if he's just saying that to sort of to not have to settle anyone else.
Doug's alluded to this earlier on. He's 28-year-old, right? He's going to Union Berlin, who are second in the Bundesliga right now, I think.
They're flying, yeah.
They are doing well.
Yep.
But you would think, I mean, I can't remember, was it a 4 or 5 year deal he signed there? I'm not sure. That takes him to 32.
Yeah.
This is his last big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and as you said, having a really good World Cup, winning titles and trophies at Celtic. Union Berlin, quote unquote, is the right move for him right now, but you would think that would be his final big pay packet. So I don't know whether or not, because I had spoken to people close to him a while back who had said, you know, the Chelsea rumour wasn't correct.
Right.
And the Manchester United rumour, it was correct, but it wasn't as sort of developed as some outlets down south would have you believe.
Yeah.
If Josip Juranovic was going to go to Chelsea, to go to Manchester United, to go to Barcelona, to go wherever, he would have gone. This would have been the move. This would have been the only time, because when he's 32, you know, no matter whether Union Berlin have win the next 4 Bundesliga titles, whether they win the Europa League that they're in this year, whether they win whatever, a 32, 33-year-old Josip Juranovic is not going to be, you know, starting for Manchester United at that age. So, you know, that Union Berlin is obviously where he sees the rest of his career. You've got to imagine.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. Strange as well. Right, we'll move on to Rangers now. We'll focus on Michael Beale. There's always so much to pick out at sort of Michael Beale's press conferences, isn't there? He likes to speak, certainly. I suppose the most telling line, of course, this morning that we sort of covered was a sort of warning that it'll be very difficult for Rangers to sort of topple Celtic due to the financial disparities between the two clubs. He was pretty honest about that. But then Doug's, straight off the bat, you sort of covered the piece this morning. That is pretty worrying to hear from a Rangers fan sort of point of view. Sort of coming from your manager, isn't it?
It is, but I think when you combine it with some of the other stuff you said, some of the other stuff you said, you can kind of understand where he's coming from. I think yesterday as well, in his press conference, he was kind of critical of how the money has been spent over the last couple of years.
Right.
I think a lot of money has been wasted. Like you look at the players in the stand on Sunday, but like Kamara Roof, Ridvan Yilmaz, Philippe Lander, John Suter, a couple more. You're comfortably looking at least $100,000 a week in wages that hasn't any impact this season. So right away there, I mean, if you use that money better, then it's going to be much easier. I think what he's trying, it's similar to what Steven Gerrard and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst have both said over the last sort of 18 months as well. That I think they're almost trying to put pressure on the board to spend that wee bit more money.
Right.
Like you look at Van Bronckhorst's comments after Rangers qualified for the Champions League, when you almost expected another couple of signings in the door. Right. That didn't happen, and I think you could tell from then that it almost went downhill right away. It was the same the year before with Gerrard. After Rangers won the league, he said about fixing the roof while the sun is shining and all that. And straight away, I mean, Rangers signed 4 players that summer, didn't spend a single penny on any of them, other than wages. There was no transfer fee spent, and it's kind of from there. It's almost went downhill window after window. There's not really been a solid one since. And I think he's kind of obviously saying the same thing, and I think he's just trying to almost buy himself a bit of time with the fans as well. I don't think the fans really buy it because of when it's happened. I think he said this when he joined, and people probably would have understood it a bit more. But when you're saying it 4 days after you've lost a League Cup final, when you had 2 signings and you put them both on the bench, it's not going to come off great. But I don't think what he said is wrong, but the timing of it was just a bit poor.
Yeah, that's a great point. But Hendo, he says that there aren't sort of huge finances available to him, and he's going to have to be creative in the summer window. But from a sort of Celtic point of view, it's kind of music to the ears for their sort of fans, isn't it? I mean, he does say Rangers are making progress. He did say that, but will it ever be enough? Over the next months, years, or whatever, to get ahead of Celtic, because they're just flying at the moment under Ange.
Well, yeah. He mentions, having to be creative. Does that mean free transfers down the line the whole time? Does that mean spending 1.5 maximum 2 million quid on a player?
Yeah.
When it comes to Celtic and Rangers, you talk about the kind of disparity between the two. It's kind of night and day at the moment, but it's not just night and day financially. It's night and day from a recruitment perspective. It's night and day from a from a recruitment perspective, because Celtic didn't spend humongous amounts of money on Rio Hatate, on Daisen Maeda. They spent a bit of money on Kyogo, but I mean that's kind of come back to that's come back to them. But they've not spent astronomical amounts of money on certain players. Aaron Moy was a free transfer, and he's proved to be a snip. Matt O'Reilly was, I think, 1.5 million quid. So it's not about it's working smarter as opposed to working harder. I think you could argue that Rangers have made it quite difficult for themselves over the past number of transfer windows, as Doug's mentioned as well. Yeah. They've not brought in even close to the quality that they've had in the past. They've not brought in even close to the quality that Ross Wilson has promised over the years. They've not brought in as close to the quality to compete with Celtic, whether they like to think they have or not. I still maintain that Steven Gerrard did a fantastic job winning the league title when he did, considering, again, the disparity. But yeah, I find it difficult to compare Celtic and Rangers in this context, because it's so, it's so night and day. I think Michael Beale will have to get creative, and I think it will be a lot of talking to agents, a lot of talking to guys that he knows. I think Michael Beale will have to lean on his contacts list down south quite heavily in the summer when it comes, because they're not going to have millions to spend. They're going to have wages. They'll have wages because they'll ship out a number of players that they currently have on their books that aren't cutting it, that aren't wanted, if you like. But I think Beale's going to have to really prove his mettle. Ross Wilson's finally going to have to, prove something. He's going to have to win the Rangers fans over, because I really don't think they're enamoured with him right now, and justifiably so. You've got to say. I think Michael Beale's going to have to really lean on the guys that he knows, old mates, coaches, managers that he has known, who might give him a wee heads up on a player who's becoming available, or I know he's mentioned in the past that he's not interested in the loan market, and you've got to imagine that might change. He could say that now, but when it comes down to it, that could change. It's going to be a really difficult summer for Rangers that way.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge window for Michael Beale and for Ross Wilson, as you say, Hendo, to win the Rangers fans over. We'll see what happens. We'll move on though to Jim Goodwin. He's back. After what is it, a month or something? He is Dundee United's new manager. He left Aberdeen in such horrendous circumstances in terms of their form. The 6-0 drubbing against Hibs, and obviously the Darwell Cup set was, really, really bad on Jim Goodwin. He's at the helm of a club now who are desperately fighting for their lives at the bottom of the league, Dundee United. Dukes, just simply, why do you think Dundee United thought that Jim Goodwin was the right man to lead them?
I think it's just they couldn't get anybody else at this stage, and he was available first. I really like Jim Goodwin as a manager. I thought, obviously, it didn't work out very well for him at Aberdeen, but I thought he did a great job at St Mirren. And I like the way he speaks and stuff, but I don't think Dundee United would have went for him if they could have got someone else. And at this stage of the season, I think a lot of managers will look at that Dundee United team and think there's no chance of keeping them up, so don't want that relegation on my CV. Whereas Jim Goodwin's happy to go in there and try and rebuild a bit of his reputation. I just don't think they've got a good enough squad to stay up, and I think people have said it all season. They've got the likes of Charlie Mulgrew, Stephen Fletcher. They've got the players there, but they're good players in name. I don't think they're necessarily good players as players anymore, unfortunately, for Dundee United. I think they're kind of still being based on the reputation of what they've done in the past.
Right.
And I think that's the same right through that squad. Don't think you really look at the squad and think there's enough here to keep them up. I think you even look at sort of Kilmarnock squad, Motherwell squad, there's players in it that you think can get into a bit of form, but you just don't see it with that Dundee United team, I don't think. But it's a big chance for Goodwin, like I said. It's a chance for him to rebuild his reputation. I think the Aberdeen move sort of turned to a disaster pretty quickly. I know he said that it was 1 week they got him sacked, but it really wasn't. It was a year of poor away results. It was sort of a year of football that wasn't great. There was a lot of anger among the fans right from the start of the season, so I don't really buy that idea that it was a week that got him the sack. That week was terrible. I mean, you can't concede. You can't get beat by Darwell for a start. I mean, the fact he survived that was ridiculous. To concede 6 goals to that Hibs team at the time, which was, I mean, Lee Johnson was on the verge of the sack at that point as well. And they managed to concede 6 goals. So it's kind of
5 at Hearts as well, wasn't it?
5 at Hearts. You just can't do that. I mean, it was an awful week, but it wasn't the week they got him sacked. What he said.
Yeah. Hendo, can you see it to be a success? I mean, or it's a really big gamble because it could fall flat in his face. Come May, United are in a lot of trouble. It's a big job for Goodwin. Given what he went through at Aberdeen.
I'm in a kind of a different position from Dougs to a point where I do agree that he's got a reputation to rebuild. The way I see it is he's there till the end of the season, right? As far as we are concerned, at this moment in time, they're 4 points clear at the bottom, right? That's at this moment in time, Dundee United are relegated, right?
Yeah.
If they continue the trajectory that they're on, they're done. For Jim Goodwin, it's kind of people expect United to go down anyway. So in his mind, he's there till the end of the season. He doesn't need to necessarily take up the mantle in the Championship. In his mind, it's kind of, I don't want to say win-win because relegation is a serious possibility, and it's not. It doesn't look good on your CV, as you say. Yeah. But at the same time, if he does anything close to a good job, and he does keep them up, then he'll be heralded as Dundee United's saviour, and he'll be given that job permanently, you would imagine, into next season, and he'll at least in the minds of fans in Scottish football, Jesus, Jim Goodwin really does have he's still got a lot left in the tank. He's a good motivator because he's managed to keep up a really poor Dundee United team, blah blah blah, and then you can kind of judge him from off the back of that next season when he keeps him in the Premiership, and then it's a case of, well, where can he go? Can he go top six? Can he is he going to be battling relegation with Dundee United again? Then you judge him the way he has been judged at Aberdeen and St Mirren and at Alloa as well. So it's such a strange situation, isn't it? Because the man, he said himself, he was told that he was off his head taking this job, right. And you can argue again that he is, but in my mind, the way I'm looking at it is, if you got to sort of step into his shoes. They're relegation fodder at the moment anyway. If I keep them up, I'll be back where I was. I'll be St Mirren Jim Goodwin again. I'll be well respected again. People will forget the Aberdeen debacle, whether they will or not, I don't know. But and then if they get relegated, then Jim Goodwin as well. I did my best, and I took the chance. I gambled on myself, and that could look to board members at other clubs as if this guy's fearless. This guy bets on himself. He gambles on himself. He's confident. It maybe didn't work out, but if Dundee United go from 4 points to 1 point, it's still an upwards trajectory for the club, and it makes Jim Goodwin look better than Jim Goodwin looks right now. So,
yeah. But what I'm getting for that is, Hendel, that you think maybe the damage is already done. Really, what's happened already this season for Dundee United? Whatever happens in the next few games.
And this is the thing. So Jim Goodwin's a better appointment than Dundee United could have made. I know, Dougs, you mentioned that had they been able to find someone better, they would have. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So Jack Ross was a good manager, but he brought in Liam Fox, and that was not a regime that was working. And Liam Fox was part of that regime that wasn't working, and they kept him on. They gave him the job, and it failed. There was the discussion in the ether of Charlie Mulgrew potentially becoming part of the first team coaching staff. After Liam Fox left, and had that happened, he was already there while Liam Fox was in the job. So Jim Goodwin's a fresh pair of eyes. He's a guy who knows the league, even though it didn't go so well for him at Aberdeen this season. Yeah. He knows things the ins and outs of different oppositions and clubs. So I definitely think he's a better appointment than they could have made. I'm just interested to see how it goes. I think I like Jim Goodwin. I like him as a manager. I think he's a much better manager than the last 3-4 months have proved or have shown. Aberdeen. I think he's a lot better than that. And again, I just put myself in his shoes. I can't really see this as anything other than, a win for Jim Goodwin, honestly, unless they get relegated by 20 points.
Yeah.
One thing I'd say anyway is he's definitely a better appointment than Liam Fox was in the first place. I mean, I think if you're
good point. Yeah.
hiring a guy who's all right, didn't work out at Aberdeen, he did well at St Mirren, is going to be much better than hiring a guy who didn't work out at Cowdenbeath. And that kind of summed up Dundee United's season, is hiring Liam Fox as their permanent manager.
Yeah, but it's really the board that have got to look at themselves really, over the course of this season, isn't it? They've got to take a lot of the flack. United fans are really not happy with, obviously Ashcott now he's up the left, Ogren as well, the ownership. I think the fans are pretty much saying that they've got to take most of the flack for what's happened really this season.
I agree with that. I think they do. The only thing it's kind of strange, isn't it? Because obviously Tony Asghar, when Jack Ross was the manager, he did spend money on wages for players that Jack Ross wanted, didn't he? I mean, you can't really deny that. And they brought in Stephen Fletcher, who on paper certainly should have been their marquee signing, should have been a goal. He is a proven goal scorer, but he should have scored a lot more than he has. Obviously, the systems change, and Jack Ross maybe tweaked things as they went. I don't know whether he was injured this season or not. I can't remember, but for one reason or another, it's not worked out. Jamie McGrath was a good signing.
Yeah.
Dylan Levitt is a good signing because he proved that he could do it at United before. So Tony Asghar, for all his faults, for all the United fans, wanted him out by the end. You have to hold your hands up and say, he did sanction deals that the manager okayed, or even the previous managers wanted in the door. But again, when you get rid of Jack Ross after the disaster against Celtic, the poor results before that, then you bring in a guy completely inexperienced, expecting your squad just to kind of do the job on the pitch without much of a proven man manager or a proven experienced boss in this league.
Yeah.
Expecting your squad to carry you through alone wasn't smart. And when Jack Ross was sacked, that's where Tony Asghar and Mark Ogren and whoever else was in charge of the decision making, that's where they earn their money, by bringing in a new manager, by recruiting a manager that's got a track record and that knows the league, knows everything about what they need to do to stay up. And they bungled it. They didn't do it. So I can understand both perspectives, but yeah.
Yep, it's going to be an interesting one with Goodwin, certainly. We'll keep a close eye on that across the next few months. All right, we'll end the live, with sort of predictions now, really. Of course, we've got another round of Premiership games this weekend. We've got Livingston versus Hibs. We've got Hearts against St Johnstone, Rangers against Kilmarnock. We've got Ross County against Motherwell, Dundee United against Aberdeen, and on Sunday we've got St Mirren against Celtic and Paisley. Okay, we'll start at Livingston, Hibs. Dukes, I'll come to you first. What do you think? I mean, Livy are not in the best form of late, kind of dropped off a wee bit, and Hibs are obviously the exact opposite, really, and a good unbeaten run, and only 5 points behind Hearts now, and we're in third place, of course. Tough one to call, this one?
No, actually, I think Hibs should win that pretty easily. Right. Actually, I think over the last few weeks, Livingston have been pretty poor. Like going back to the cup game against Inverness, they were really poor. I've never seen a Rangers team win so comfortably at Tony Macaroni as they did a few weeks ago. It was a couple of late goals, but it could have been a few more than that. And Hibs are in good form as well. I think Lee Johnson's got them fired up. It's been a weird season for Hibs. Like the fact that they're only, I think, 4 or 5 points behind Hearts now in battle for third.
Sounds strange, doesn't it?
Yeah, whereas a couple of months ago, you wouldn't have been surprised to see them in the relegation battle, but. Yeah, he's turned it around there, and they've got a decent squad, so I would expect Hibs to win that one pretty comfortably, maybe even 2-3-0.
Hendry, would you agree with that one?
No. Sorry, Dukes. No, I still don't trust Hibs on the road this season. They've definitely improved, but to improve from a losing team is, it's what it is. Livingston are hard to beat at home, and they're stuffy. So I'll take a draw on that one.
All right, but yeah, even when Duke says, obviously Rangers, dispatched them pretty easily, and obviously in the cup as well. I think maybe people will forget, that Inverness they put 3 past Livingston.
It's true, no, you're spot on. But I think nowadays Davy Martindale considers Hibs to be among the teams that Livingston should be rivaling in the league. So if you don't think Davy Martindale's going to have his Liverpool team fired up for Hibs arriving at Tony Macaroni, then you're mad. But I'll go draw. Hibs might outplay them. That could happen, but no, I'll take a draw.
That's like I said there that obviously I think Hibs will win, and I do think they will win. But if it got to 5 o'clock tomorrow and Livingston had won 4-0, it wouldn't surprise me. One of those games.
It's been such a strange season for Hibs. Nothing would surprise us at this point in the season. Right, okay, we'll go to the other side, Edinburgh. Hearts and St Johnstone. I suppose, as we spoke about there with Hibs, I mean, Hearts will maybe be feeling a wee bit of pressure, given Hibs' run of late. And obviously St Johnstone, on the other hand, they can try and close the gap to the sort of top 6. They'll be pushing for that. Dukes, what do you think, Hearts and Johnstone?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hearts will win. I don't think they've got the best record against St Johnstone.
Aye.
I do think they will win. I think they've had a couple of weeks off. Also, didn't play last weekend because of the cup final. So yeah, I mean, I think they've been probably working hard in the training pitch. They've got some more players back fit and firing again. Yeah. So whereas St Johnstone are one of those teams that I don't think they've got much to play for anymore this season. I don't think they'll get top 6. I don't think they'll be dragged into the relegation battle again.
Right.
So I think it's probably going to be a Hearts win, I would say. I think, again, not comfortable, but maybe a 2-0.
Yeah. Endo, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'll agree with that. I don't see Robbie Nielsen flapping with Hibs form and Hearts slipping up again. One side against Motherwell. I don't see him flapping. I think Hearts will win that one.
All right, we'll go to Ibrox then. We've got Rangers against Kilmarnock. Dougs, would you expect Rangers to bounce back in this one? Of course, Kelly's away form is absolutely wretched. I don't see anything else than a Rangers win here.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Rangers didn't win. I think you'll see a few changes in the Rangers team as well. I would fully expect Raskin and Cantwell to start at least.
Right.
And probably maybe another 1 or 2 changes, but I might be wrong on this, but I think I heard it on the radio the other day that Kilmarnock have scored something like 4 or 5 goals away from home this season. It's something really low. And
that's probably right. 0 wins at all away in the league this season, and it's I'm now in March, so it's just horrendous, really. Yeah,
so I'd expect it's one of those games that's going to be Kilmarnock sitting behind the ball for 90 minutes and Rangers maybe get 1 or 2 goals to see what happens. But I think Rangers probably need to score early to score a few. But like if they even won 2-0, they'll be quite happy just to get back to 1 and again.
Yeah, I'd fully agree with that one. Pendle, do you think the same?
Aye, unfortunately for you, Gary, I can see.
I'm resigned already, so I'm really not at this point.
Honestly, God, I can see Rangers blowing Kelly away. If Raskin comes back in, Cantwell comes back in, they've got a point to prove this weekend, and Michael Beale will see it that way, no matter who the opposition would be. Whether it was Kelly at home, whether it was Celtic away. He personally, I think, has a point to prove because of certain decisions that he made in the cup final. Right. And he'll fire his team up, and I think it could be, I don't know, 4-0.
4-0. I can't disagree with that. Can't dispute that at all. Right, we'll go to the Highlands. Ross County, Motherwell. kind of tough one, really, on paper. But, the Staggies they're really strong at home, aren't they, Dougs? Obviously dispatching the Dundee United, who, of course, were really poor. But, County are, if they're going to get wins, they're probably going to be at home. It's probably the same with kind of Kelly as well. But, yeah, what do you think, County Motherwell?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think, obviously, Kettlewell's done well since he's went into Motherwell, but like you say, it's difficult to go up to Dingwall to get a result. I think Kettlewell would probably be quite happy with a draw. I'm not sure it would suit Ross County as much, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, and I don't see too much between the sides, so I wouldn't surprise me if it was a draw.
Yeah, I think a draw as well. What do you think, Endo?
I go County. I think Motherwell's new manager bounce is done.
It's done. Can I peter out?
So it was, 2 matches that Kettlewell had in charge, is that right? Am I wrong?
Just 3 he's been in charge from
3 now, yeah. Obviously, they scored a sensational
so
the other last week against Command.
No, I think it will be because sometimes when a new manager comes in, especially after they've been in interim charge or whatever, they bump back down to life and back down to reality. And I think away from home against a Ross County team that are also battling for points, it's not where they want this weekend to be. He'd rather have a home tie, a home game against a Kelly, a Dundee United. So I'll go the Staggies this weekend.
All righty. Right, okay. Dundee United, Aberdeen. That's on Saturday as well. Obviously, Jim Goodwin is back against his former team. It's going to be a strange day for him in the dugout. What do you think, Dougs? Aberdeen, think they're going to win this one?
Honestly, I don't think you can guess this one. You've got Dundee United who can't win anywhere and Aberdeen who can't win away. So it's going to be an interesting game, but I mean, it could go anyway. It genuinely could. It could be.
Yeah.
It could be any score, and it wouldn't be a surprise. Also, I think with it being Goodwin against his former team, you wouldn't be surprised if Dundee United got a result, and you've also got the new manager about as well. Whereas Aberdeen still have a caretaker in charge. So,
yeah,
it's going to be an interesting one. But I think, again, I'll probably go for a draw on this one because I just can't see either team actually winning a game.
I suppose Hendry Goodwin will be the most prepared manager in the Premiership. Obviously, going up against Aberdeen, every one of these players he was managing only about a month ago. What do you think?
Yeah, I've just sat for 15 minutes and praised Jim Goodwin, so I'm going to need to stick with that. I think Dundee United will get a result. I think they'll win.
Right.
I don't think it will be a 3-4-5, but I don't know. I can see a 90th minute winner and Jim Goodwin tops up.
That'd be tremendous, wouldn't it?
I'll go Dundee United 2-1,
right.
and see what happens. We'll come back next week and Aberdeen will have spiked them 4-0, but
4-0. We'll see. That's what always happens. Right, the last one of the weekend. That's on Sunday. St Mirren against Celtic and Paisley. Doug's surely not a repeat of the last time this fixture was played. Obviously, St Mirren beating Celtic at home early in the season. What do you think? Surely Celtic got this in the bag.
Yeah, Celtic will win that one comfortably. I think early in the season, Celtic probably underestimated how good St Mirren are at home. And they are good at home. I think the Royal lost up like 2 games at home all season. So they are good there, but I just can't see past Celtic. They'll go out full strength. I think also the last time they were missing Carter Vickers, they were missing McGregor.
That's right, yeah.
So yeah, it'll be a comfortable Celtic one. I wouldn't be surprised if they got a few goals.
Yeah, shot in the cards here, Hendo. Nah, or Celtic one.
Nah, I don't see a shot in the cards. St Mirren will make it hard for them as they always do, but yeah, I still think Celtic walk away with a couple of goals under their belts and 3 points.
All righty. That concludes the live then. Thanks very much, Dougs and Hendo, for joining me today. I'm sure we'll be back next week to discuss all the games that have happened at the weekend. But thanks very much for watching on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're on there just now. We've got plenty of good stuff on there from the weekend, from the cup final, and there's plenty more to come as well. So subscribe to the channel. But yeah, thanks very much for watching today, and we'll speak to you all very soon.